So this section is about solving rational equations. So solving rational equations. Now, what is a rational equation? A rational equation is an equation where we can have one or more rational expression in it. So a rational expression is an expression that is the ratio of two polynomials. So if you have a fraction where you divide a polynomial by another polynomial, then it's a rational expression. Here are some examples. This is a rational expression because you have a numerator and a denominator. Here's another one. X plus 1 divided by x minus 1 is also a rational expression. It's given, another word for rational is fraction. So that's another rational expression. Well, remember the difference between expression and an equation is that if you don't have equal sign, you don't have an equation. And the equation is two expressions separated by an equal sign. So those are expressions because you don't have inequality. You don't have an equal sign. So speaking about rational expressions, you remember that you cannot have anything, anytime you have a denominator, you need to have the denominator not zero. So your denominator cannot be zero. You cannot divide by zero. So that means you need to make some restriction. For the first one here, you need x, the denominator, to be a non-zero expression. Same thing here, x minus 1 should be a non-zero expression. And here, x squared minus plus 4x minus 1 should be a non-zero expression, which means you need to exclude any value that makes denominator equals 0. Exclude values that makes denominator equals 0. So that means if you have a rational expression equals 0. If you're solving a rational equation, first thing you want to do is to make sure that the denominator cannot be 0. And all the zeros that needs that all the values that make the denominator equal 0, you need to make sure that these values are banned from being solutions. They cannot be solution. So x would not be 0. That means x equals 0 is excluded. X cannot be x minus 1 cannot be 0. That means x equals 1 is excluded. Well, we use a different expression here. So x minus 5x, x squared minus 5x plus 6 is not 0. That means x equals 2, x equals 3 are excluded because those two values make x squared minus 5x plus 6 0 when you plug them in. Or when you solve the equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0, you find x equals 2 and x equals 3. So those values are excluded. And then the first thing that you want to do when you're solving a quadratic rational equation, you need to check to see where or what are the values that will make this the expression in denominator, if any, because if you have a constant in denominator, it will never be 0. But otherwise, whenever you have a expression with the variable in denominator, you need to exclude the values for which this expression in denominator equals 0. And that is always required when solving a rational equation. So let's see what are the steps when solving a rational equation. Step number one is you need to factor completely the denominator. All the denominators, make sure that they're factored, because when you have an expression to find the LCD, the best way is to make sure that this expression is completely factored. Next, you have to make sure that you identify the LCM or LCD. LCD, the least common denominator or least common multiple. The least common denominator. Or also called, if it's M, then least common multiple. Least common multiple. So you need to find the least common denominator and make sure that the least common denominator, you solve it equals 0 to find excluded values. So you solve it equals 0 in order to make sure you identify the excluded values. And next, you make sure that you write this equation with a common denominator for all the expression, where you can just omit the denominator because it's all common and solve the numerator. So that will be this property here. If all the denominators are the same, then you can go ahead and solve the numerator and omit, just cancel the denominator because it's the same. All right, so let's go ahead with a few examples. Example number one, we're going to try to find the least common denominator for 7, 18, and 6. Well, knowing that 6 is a factor of 18, so 18 and 6, they have 6 in common. So if I multiply 6 and 8, 7 and 18, I don't have to worry about 6 because I know 6 is already automatically included in 18. So we can just find the LCD, that's going to be 7 times 18 equals 126. So we get that LCD or LCM. Now, next, we need to make sure that we find whether we have excluded value. So we do not have an excluded or any excluded values because this number that is the common denominator, least common denominator, does not have any variable. So that means 126 will always be 126. It cannot be 0. So denominator is always 126, a constant. So D and E, there is no excluded value. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to write all the fractions with the common denominator, that is 126. So the first fraction, denominator 126, equals, denominator is 126 minus 126. Now, we're going to work with the numerator to get the top for each expression. So now, how did we get 126 from 7? If you remember, we multiplied it by 18. So then if we multiplied 7 by 18, we need to do the same thing with the top and the bottom. So basically we multiplied by 18 here. So we should multiply by 18. So that'd be 18. And then what happens to the second fraction on the other side of the equation? We had 18. Now we want to have 126. So we would need to multiply the top by 7, and same thing here. That's how we get the 126. So that'd be 7 times x plus 2. And we will do the same thing for the second fraction. For the third fraction, it was 6 at first. Now, if we want to get 126, we're going to want to multiply by 21. Basically, we divided 126. 126, we divided by 6 to see what multiplies 6 to get 126. We divided by 6. It's 21. So 126 divided by 6 is 21. So that's 21 times x plus 3. Now that we have a common denominator, we no longer need to work with it. It's all the same. We can work with the top expressions for the equation only. So my equation becomes 18 equals, I'm going to distribute 7 and 21, negative 21. So that is going to be 7x plus 14 minus 21x minus 63. Now we'll combine like terms. This side will remain 18 equals negative 14x, and then 63 minus 14, negative 63 plus 14. So that'll be negative 49. So let me add 49 on both sides. Now add 49 on both sides. That is 67 equals negative 14x. If we divide by negative 14, we'll get x equals um, we get x equals negative 67 over 14. So we have options. If you get the value for x, that's what you choose. If you don't have a solution, that's what you choose. And then if you have an infinitely many solution, that's what you would choose. We found the x value. So the solution is x equals negative 67 over 14. Okay, so next example here, we'll process the same way. So we need to make sure that we find the least common denominator. So the common denominator here will have x because x is common and this one is 1. So we would have x and then 2 times 3, that's 6. So the least common denominator is 6x. 6x. Now we should solve least common denominator equals 0 so we can find the excluded values. So that's 6x equals 0. Divide by 2, divide by 6. We get x equals 0. So excluded value is 0. So when solving this equation, if x equals 0 is found to be a solution, this solution will be rejected because it's not an accepted value for the equation. Now that we have the least common denominator, we can rewrite this equation with all denominator being 6x. All the denominator being 6x, so that we can eliminate the bottom. Now, how did you get 6x? Well, we already had 2x. We should multiply by 3, right? So that's 9. How do you get 6x? Well, you already had 3. we should multiply by 2. So that's 10. How do you get 6x here? Obviously, it's 1. You need to multiply by 6x. So that's 6x. Then you can eliminate the denominator because it's all uniform. So then that's going to be 9 minus 10 equals 6x. And then that's negative 1 equals 6x. Divide by 6. X is negative 1, 6. Your solution is x equals negative 1 over 6. Now let's go with the next one. This is denominator 1. So basically we will multiply all the denominators to get the LCD. So that's 4 times x minus 2. And then solve LCD equals 0 to find excluded values. So that's 4 times x minus 2 equals 0, which is, since 4 is not 0, so that's x minus 2, that is 0. So x equals 2 is excluded. X equals 2 is excluded. So we have the excluded value. So then we're going to try to make sure that all the denominators are common, right? The first one plus the second equals the third. Denominator common is 4 times x minus 2, 4 times x minus 2, 4 times x minus 2. Now let's see how we get 4 times x minus 2 from 4. We would need to multiply by x minus 2, right? So that's x times x minus 2. For the next one, how do you get 4 times x minus 2 where we had 1? So we would need to multiply by 4 times, we would need to multiply by 4 times x minus 2. So basically it's 12 times x minus 2. And then last, how do you get the 4 times x minus 2 while you already had x minus 2? So we would need to multiply by 4, right? So that's 4 times x plus 4 up here, and eliminate the denominators. Then we can go ahead and distribute this. That's x squared minus 2x. This one will be 12x minus 24. And this will be 4x times 16. I mean plus 16. Okay, when we have no denominators now, we can go ahead and combine like terms. X squared, negative 2x plus 12x, that's 10x, minus 24. Move the terms over, minus 4x plus 16 equals 0. That's x squared. So 10x minus 4x, that is plus 6x. Negative 24 plus 16. Negative 24 plus minus 16, that is minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so we can factor this. Two factors of negative 8, that the sum is positive. Two factors of, let me sure that we get everything right. So that's negative 16. Oh, that's negative 16 here. Should be negative 16. And then it's negative 4. So that's negative 40. It's negative 40. Okay. So now everything is right. So two factors of negative 40 that the sum is positive 6. So that's 4. That's 4 and negative 4 and positive 10. Right? So that's x minus 4, x plus 10 equals 0. And then you get x, the zero principle, the zero product principle, we would have x minus 4 equals 0, or x plus 10 equals 0, x equals 4, or x equals negative 10. So your solution, first, we need to check to see, so all the solutions work because this is 4, it's not excluded, and then this is 10, it's not one of the excluded. So your solution is 4 and negative 10. Let's see the next example here. Your denominator is 1 here and it's 1 here. So if you multiply all across the denominator, the LCD will be x. So x cannot be 0. So the excluded value is 0. If you have 0 as a solution, you know that this needs to be rejected. Now let's go ahead and rewrite the equation with a common denominator. X is the least common denominator we have. It's already 2 over x. We don't have to change it. This one was 1, so we had x, so we multiply everything up and down by x, makes this one x squared. Same thing here, you multiply x up and down by x, it's x up here. So now we can eliminate the denominator because it's common. So that's 2 equals x squared minus x. Then if we want to have all the terms on one side, x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. Can factor this as x minus 2 times x plus 1 equals 0, because negative 1 and negative 2 are the two factors of negative 2 that the sum would be negative 1. So solutions, x minus 2 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0, x equals 2, or x equals negative 1. All of them are good because they're not rejected. So your solution here is 2, negative 1. We have a few more examples. Let's see if we can do them. They'll look more challenging, but it's the same process. All right. So for this one, we need to make sure we factor all the denominators. So my first equation is 3 over x plus 1 equals 1 over x squared minus 1. So we're going to try to write this in factored form. The first one is okay. 3 over x plus 1 equals, the factored form is 1 over, is x minus 1, x plus 1. So x plus 1 is already common, so we want to include all the factors in the LCD. So that's going to be x minus 1 times x plus 1 for the LCD. LCD will be 0 when x equals, this one is 0 when x equals 1, and this one will be 0 if x equals negative 1. So 1, negative 1 are the excluded values. So we have the excluded values. Now we want to try to write the equation with the common denominator. So common denominator will be the LCD, right? Or LCM. So it's going to be x minus 1 times x plus 1, which is the same as x squared minus 1. Okay, so this is the same as this one. We repeat. I made a mistake and I repeat this one. So this should be the same here. All right, so just trying to fix this to avoid confusion. Okay, so here we have x minus 1, x plus 1 here too. So how do you get x plus 1 times x minus 1 here? You would need to multiply by x minus 1 up here and x minus 1 here too. So that's 3 times x minus 1, and this one is already the same expression. Now, the common denominator, we can cancel it, and then we're going to solve 3x. We distribute this, minus 3 equals 1. We can add 3 on both sides. 3x equals 4, divide by 3, x equals 4/3. Your solution, this would not be one, this value is accepted, not one of the excluded values. So the solution is 4/3. Next example here is we're solving 2 over x minus 1 equals 6 over x squared minus x. We're going to write this in factored form. Just factor the GCF, which is x. So that's 2 over x minus 1 equals 6 over x times x minus 1. The least common denominator would be x times x minus 1. And the excluded values are 0 because this one is 0 when x equals 0. And this one will be 0 when x equals 1. So 1. Look for common denominator. So that's gonna be x times x minus 1, x times x minus 1. And how do you get x times x minus 1 for this one? You would need to multiply by x. So that's 2x. How do you get x times x minus 1 here? It's already x times x minus 1, so just gonna be the same thing. So you eliminate the denominator because it's just the same. You can solve the tops. Equals 6 divided by 2, x equals 3. Not one of the excluded values. We can keep this one. So the solution is 3. Okay. Now next, same thing. We're gonna try to find the factored form of all the denominators and then find the LCD excluded values and then solve. So factored form for this one is x plus 1, x plus 2 times x minus 2. So 4 over x plus 2 times x minus 2 equal minus 1 over x plus 2 equals x minus 1 times x minus 2. The LCM, common least common multiple would be x plus 2 times x minus 2. Excluded values for this one will be -2, and for this one will be +2. You have the excluded values, so we can go ahead and write the expression as a common denominator. Common denominator is x plus 2 times x minus 2. This one's already the same, so we don't have to change anything. Minus x plus 2 times x minus 2, but it wasn't x times 2 x plus 2 times x minus 2, was only x plus 2. So we need to multiply top and bottom by x minus 2. So that's 1 times x minus 2. And then last, it's already x minus 2. We multiply by x plus 2. So x minus 1 times x plus 2, x minus 1 times x plus 2. So that takes me to the point where I can eliminate the denominator to solve 4 minus x minus plus 2 equals x squared plus x minus 2. I FOIL this to get this expression. So here we can find all the terms on one side, x squared plus 2x. This is 6 minus 8 equals 0. So I combine like terms here. That's 6. And then when you subtract 6, it gives you -8. When you add x, it gives you plus 2x. And then the x squared is already here. It has no like terms. Okay, now we can factor this. 2 factors of -8 that the sum is +2 will be -2 and +4. So x plus 4, x minus 2. Solve each, x plus 4 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. X equals -4, or x equals 2. 2 was excluded, so only x equals 4 is the solution. Let's do the same thing here. This is a quadratic expression. We want to factor it. We want to have it factored. So the other expressions are going to be the same. X over x minus 2 plus 1 over x minus 4 equals 2 factors of 8 that the sum is -6 is -4 and -2. So that's x minus 2, x minus 4, and then the 2 is the numerator. So we would need to multiply this one top and bottom by x plus 4, x minus 4. Multiply this one by x minus 2. And this one is already okay. So then we're going to have the common denominator, the common denominator, that's x. Well, the expression we're solving is x times x minus 4 plus x1 times x minus 2 equals 2, because we eliminate the denominator. So that's x squared minus 4x plus x minus 2 equals 2. We distribute the inside of the parentheses outside to multiply by everything inside. Combine that terms, x squared minus 3x minus 2 minus 2 equals 0. I subtract 2 on both sides. So that's minus 4 actually. And then now we can factor this expression. We get x. So basically that's going to be 1 and negative 4. Minus plus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. So x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. And then x equals negative 1, or x equals, well, I forgot to write the LCM. The LCM is x minus 2, x minus 4, and excluded values are 2 and 4. And x equals 4. X equals 4 is excluded, and x equals 1 was not excluded. So we can keep it. Solution is negative 1.